Welcome back to EtherLink AI Insights. I'm Alex, and today we're diving into something that's absolutely reshaping how enterprises operate: Agentic AI and Multi-Agent Orchestration. And we're focusing specifically on what's happening in Helsinki and the broader Nordic tech ecosystem in 2026. Sam, thanks for joining me.
Great to be here, Alex. This topic is fascinating because we're past the hype phase now. The reality is that 72% of organizations are actually piloting or deploying these systems, but, and this is the tension, 60% of them are hitting serious reliability problems in production. That gap between pilot enthusiasm and production reality is where the real work happens.
Exactly. And that's why this matters for Helsinki specifically, right? The Nordic region has this unique advantage with GDPR maturity and data governance already baked into the culture. Why do you think that positions Helsinki differently than, say, Silicon Valley?
Because Helsinki isn't trying to retrofit compliance later. The EU AI Act is coming, and Nordic enterprises are already thinking about audit trails, trustworthiness, and governance as first-class architectural concerns. That's not a constraint. It's actually an advantage. When you build agents that are auditable from day one, you avoid the expensive technical debt that US-first companies are accumulating right now.
So let's dig into what we actually mean by Agentic AI. A lot of listeners might be thinking, isn't that just a chatbot? What's the fundamental difference?
Night and day difference. A chatbot responds to you in a single turn. An agent is autonomous. It researches data, makes decisions, calls tools, iterates toward a goal. And when you have multiple agents working together, orchestrating their work, that's where enterprise magic happens. One agent might research something, another analyzes it, a third takes action. The system keeps learning and improving.
Give us a concrete example. What does that actually look like in a real Helsinki company?
Picture a customer service setup. Instead of one agent answering all tickets, you have a retrieval agent that finds relevant knowledge, a triage agent that categorizes severity, and an execution agent that routes to the right department or generates a response. That's not just incremental, it's fundamentally redesigning how support works. Gartner called it the killer app for enterprise automation, and I think they're right.
Okay, so the upside is clear. But you mentioned that 60% struggle with reliability. What are the main failure modes?
Hallucinations are the biggest one. Agents confidently generate incorrect information because they're not grounded in real data. That's catastrophic in compliance or healthcare scenarios. The second issue is cost. 66% of enterprises cite cost as their primary barrier to scaling. A 3-agent system handling customer inquiries can easily cost 50 cents to $2 per interaction. Multiply that across millions of requests, and suddenly your AI project becomes economically indefensible.
That's a significant number. How do you actually solve the cost problem?
This is where European models are becoming genuinely interesting. Companies like Mistral AI are shipping smaller, efficient models, 8B and 12B parameter variants, that deliver about 70% of GPT-4 performance at a tenth of the cost. For Helsinki enterprises specifically, that means you can build sovereign, EU-hosted, cost-optimized systems without relying on US cloud infrastructure. It's both economically and politically attractive.
So if cost and reliability are the two big pain points, what's the architectural approach that actually addresses both?
You need a 3-layer stack. Bottom layer is orchestration. That's the traffic cop that routes tasks between agents, manages state, and enforces guardrails for compliance and safety. Middle layer is the agents themselves, each with a specific role: research, analysis, decision-making. Top layer is integration, connectors to your actual enterprise data, APIs, and audit logs. That structure is foundational.
And within that architecture, I'm hearing RAG, retrieval augmented generation, is important for fixing the hallucination problem. Can you unpack that?
RAG is genuinely powerful. Instead of letting an agent generate answers from pure knowledge, you retrieve relevant documents first, then have the agent synthesize from that grounded context. One Helsinki financial services firm built a compliance advisor with this approach. One agent retrieves EU regulations and internal policies. Another analyzes and finds conflicts. A third recommends compliant actions with confidence scores. The result? Cost dropped from 80 cents to 12 cents per query, and accuracy jumped from 67% to 94%. That's the ROI conversation that matters.
That's a real, measurable impact. Beyond RAG, you mentioned MCP servers as another way to standardize how agents work together. What's the practical benefit there?
Without standardization, every agent needs custom integrations to external tools. That's expensive and fragile. MCP, Model Context Protocol, created by Anthropic and now adopted by Mistral and OpenAI, gives agents a common language for talking to tools. It's like creating an API standard for agent-tool interactions. Suddenly, connecting a new data source or service becomes modular instead of bespoke engineering. That's a massive productivity unlock for enterprises.
So we've covered architecture and cost. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room: EU AI Act compliance. How does that change how you actually build these systems?
Honestly, it shifts your entire mindset. Instead of shipping first and auditing later, compliance needs to be built in from the beginning. That means every agent decision needs to be loggable and traceable. You need to know not just what the agent did, but why. That requires audit logs, decision trees with fallbacks, confidence thresholds. For Helsinki enterprises, this is actually an advantage because you're designing for transparency rather than bolting it on afterward.
So compliance isn't slowing down innovation, it's shaping better architecture from the start. What's your single biggest piece of advice for a Helsinki enterprise team starting this journey?
Start with a single, well-scoped multi-agent workflow. Don't try to automate your entire operation. Pick one process: customer support, compliance review, data analysis, where you can measure ROI clearly. Build that with RAG grounding and proper audit trails. Once you've proven the pattern, you scale. That iterative approach surfaces reliability issues early and gives you real cost data instead of theoretical models.
That's practical and grounded. Sam, before we wrap, what are you most excited about in this space right now?
Honestly, the fact that Helsinki and the Nordic region are positioned to lead globally here. You have data governance expertise, EU-first thinking, and now access to cost-efficient models that work in your sovereign infrastructure. The next 5 years, I think European multi-agent systems outcompete US approaches because they're built on stronger foundations of trust and auditability. That's not a technical advantage. It's a business moat.
Excellent point. For listeners who want to dive deeper into the technical architecture, orchestration patterns, and specific compliance frameworks, the full article is on EtherLink AI. You'll find implementation details, cost calculators, and resources for teams building production-ready agents. Thanks so much, Sam, and thanks to you for listening to EtherLink AI Insights.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Great conversation.